In the first part of this video, me and Mark are gonna be explaining to you guys where we kind of are in life and training. We're gonna be explaining what this project is, what it means to us, and what you guys can expect in the future. And then after that portion, we're gonna jump right into our first podcast episode. In this episode, me and Mark are gonna be going back and forth on the do's and don'ts for beginners getting into the gym. We're gonna be giving our opinion on the things we feel you should prioritize when you first start in the gym and the things you should avoid. So let's get right into this video. Make sure to drop a comment down below. Me and Mark are super pumped about this project and we love to hear as much feedback as possible.
We got a new thing going on. This is called Anabolic Activities. Thank you for some of you that are already following along on the YouTube channel. This young man is extraordinary and he's been training and he's been working in the warehouse here at Slingshot for a few years. He's getting jacked, he's getting tan, he has tons of potential. So Wyatt, who's behind the camera, along with Kenny, came up with this term, anabolic
activities. Yep.
And what's the anabolic activities? Where did some of that stem from?
You know, really just what we like doing. We just like training, we like eating, we like anything that has to do with being anabolic. We like it. So
getting better, getting bigger.
Yeah, just
right?
improvement, progress. That's what it's really about in all areas. So
yeah, and I think, you know, the real truth is a lot of us around here at Slingshot and Super Training, when you boil it down, we just love training.
Yeah.
We're just meatheads. We think about this stuff day and night. And Kenny is 21 years old?
Yep, yeah.
This guy's 21 years old and he's thinking about this stuff day and night, and he's got the fire, he's got the heart. And I still love training and I still got some fire and some heart, but it doesn't compare to like the beginning phases of when you're getting started with something. And so here we are with some anabolic activities. And while we're talking to you guys, you're gonna see us a lot of times doing some calves, training some forearms,
yep,
training some triceps,
neck.
We're trying to get in that tricep, we're trying to get in that neck, calf, forearm Hall of Fame.
Yep. Oh yeah. But yeah, honestly, I'm just a meathead. Mark took me kind of under his wing and is showing me things, so I'm not claiming to know or be an expert on anything. I'm just using experience and, you know, what he shows me, and I'm just in a really good spot and I have a really good opportunity to learn. So I'm just, if I can help anybody else out there, my age, older, younger, then that's my goal. So
this guy is developing a lot of knowledge. He's got books and books and books. Go ahead and do your set of calves. We can't be slacking around here.
Oh no, we can't.
He's got books and books and books stacked up of notes that he takes. He listens to different podcasts. Obviously he's here, so he sees a lot of the guests that come in, and he's got some opportunities to rub elbows with some of those people. But I think it's pretty impressive. He's only done one bodybuilding show, but you are like 250, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He's starting to close in on 250. He's working on getting bigger, and he's working on, you know, getting bigger so that when you cut down, that you're completely shredded and you have something to show for it on stage, rather than what a lot of guys will do, especially newer guys. Unfortunately, sometimes they will get lean, but they'll be too small. And then there's the other side of bodybuilding, which most bodybuilders, quite frankly, don't quite get lean enough. And that's not what we're about here. We're trying to push the envelope and kind of see where we can take some of this stuff.
Oh yeah. Mark's over here trying to get shredded, and I'm just trying to bulk, and probably for the next year, and just really make improvements so the next time I go on stage, my weak points are brought up and I look more complete.
Kenny's a former baseball player, and you know, being a former baseball player and then transitioning more and more into weights, it was kind of hard for you, right? Because your identity was wrapped up.
Oh yeah.
In being like a baseball player, right?
Yeah. So my whole life, I played sports. I played baseball. Had a scholarship. I was set to play baseball probably in my mind for the rest of my life. So yeah, that kind of, I just totally lost interest and picked up lifting, powerlifting, bodybuilding, and I just fell in love with training. So like Mark said, I just love training. The bodybuilding preps are cool, the powerlifting, you know, all that's fun, like when you have a goal, but at the end of the day, I just love the training part, whether I'm bodybuilding, powerlifting, or just doing no goal set. I still just love working out. So
yeah, this is a big deal for me. I'm really excited about this project because, as you guys know, we already have the Power Project, and you're going to see Anabolic Activities as a podcast live under the Mark Bell Power Project name. We're still trying to figure some of it out, so be patient with us as we pop things up on different YouTube channels. But you're going to see a lot of our training. You're going to hear us talk about nutrition. We're not afraid to talk about drugs.
nope.
When it comes to drugs and performance enhancement, though, I really think you're going to see a lot of people in 2023 turn to TRT, and maybe the people that did so in 2020 and 2021 and 2022 and so on, you're going to see a lot of those people not be that pumped about the results, because it doesn't matter what you try to load your body up with. It doesn't matter if you alter your hormones if you're not putting in the work. It still can be very, very difficult to change your body. It still is, because you have to change so many habits about yourself. And no matter where you're at, the difficulty level is through the roof. My uncle, who lost like 80 pounds probably 20 years ago, last time he saw me, he was like, "You look great. You're in amazing shape." He's like, "Congratulations." He gave me a big hug. My uncle always gives me a kiss on the cheek too. He gave me a big old kiss, and he's like, "I love you." And he said, "Hey," he goes, "being in shape, it's a full-time job, isn't it?" And I was like, that just hit me really hard, because later on I started to think about it. I was like, holy fuck, he's right.
Yeah, it's 24/7, yeah.
It's a full-time job. It doesn't matter if you're trying to do what you're doing, because the level is so hard, it's so high.
Right.
That's 24. It's not easy for you.
No,
Some people think, oh, it's easier for you because you're 21, you're running some gear, so it's easier for you.
Yeah.
But the level's still hard because of who you want to compete against.
Right, yeah.
And if you're just getting started and you're 45 and you've never really dieted before, never really been in shape before, how hard is that? Well, that's really hard because you've never developed any of those habits yet.
Yep. So I've been at Super Training for 3 years, and I've been able to kind of pick everybody's brain, and they've kind of, showed me how to do things properly. They've kept me out of trouble a lot of times, whether they knew it or not. I get to be around people like Mark, Chris, Nsima, Andrew, like every single day I'm around these people, and I get to, the last 3 years since I was here when I was 19, I've just got to kind of like watch how they move, how they work, how they carry themselves. And then now I'm getting to, grow relationships with all of them. So it's a really cool opportunity. Lifting, life, just the mental side of things, they've helped me a lot, and I've watched myself kind of grow up to this point. So I'm super excited to keep learning.
Yeah, you had some anxiety and some concern about like where you're going to end up, who you're going to be. I'm sure you still have a lot of concern over that because you're so young.
Yeah, definitely.
But having a lot of guys that are older around maybe have helped you quite a bit, huh? Oh
yeah, all you guys have helped me a lot. Just kind of reassure me, like, Mark and Chris, I've both been super stressed and had a lot of anxiety about this, but they just tell me, keep doing what you're doing. I didn't understand it when I was 19, but I'm starting to see it now a little bit. Like, they just told me, keep doing what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. And I did, because I didn't have anything else I could do. So I just followed that path, and so far it's been amazing.
We've seen a familiar path, haven't we, Chris?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Who else have we seen that's very similar to this guy at a really young age?
Well, you.
There you go.
I don't know who else.
John Cena.
Cena was so motivated. He did it. He worked really hard.
Wow.
He always worked harder than everybody, no matter what he did. He used to work in a warehouse, just like you, actually. And he used to fold blankets because he didn't want to leave the warehouse because he wanted to be able to lift afterwards. So Mark and I we were always going down on the road.
We worked at a company moving fitness equipment.
Really?
Mass Movement.
Oh.
And he folded the blanket, the hammer strength blankets.
Johnny Blanket folder. They even called it that in wrestling.
That's sick.
Remember that?
Yeah,
he wrestled Spanky.
He wanted to fold blankets because he could stay back and eat his chicken and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he lived off of Metrex, like a fake Metrex even. Came in a big tub, and it was like a meal replacement.
Oh, meal replacement.
And he would have 6 of them a day because he had no food.
Damn.
And then at night he would go to Sharky's and he would eat free pizza from the place, because if you can eat the whole
you
pie,
told me
you get
that
it for free.
Yeah.
He did it 3 times in a row, and then the guy just said, "You have free pizza for life because I don't want to give you a free pie every day."
Yeah.
But yeah, last time we saw somebody this big around this age with this amount of dedication was probably from him, right?
Nsima was bigger though, wasn't he?
Okay. Yeah, he probably was. He definitely was.
Nsima has weird because his
has weird
forearms,
proportions.
and his Cena's pretty big.
You're more of a bodybuilder. He did some bodybuilding, but he was like, his proportions are crazy.
Yeah.
Like his arms are so.
His proportions weren't great for bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Because like his whole thing, like his wrist, forearm, elbow joint, and arm, and like everything's like.
It all looks fake, actually. It looks like a big fake arm.
Looks like blown up arms.
That's sick.
Yeah, it's like SpongeBob when he blows up the arms.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what Cena's arms look like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
anyway, you're going to see a lot of fun stuff from us with Anabolic Activities. I'm excited because it gets me in a different realm with my training. I get to kind of bring up the intensity in my own training, because actually just lifting weights and actually just purely like bodybuilding and trying to bring up my strength wasn't a main focus for a little while. But now it's going to be another main focus. So now I'm fired up to be working out with Kenny and fired up to be bringing you guys some Anabolic Activities. Today's world, you can learn some stuff from the internet.
That'll be enough volume to, even if you're not, taking the movements to failure like we do.
Experience, did you ever use light, medium, heavy?
As a beginner, I think it's super important to learn the technique of compound movements.
What kind of lifting do you think someone should do?
Whether you go off and do a powerlifting program or whatever you do, like something more athletic, you're still gonna know how to like brace.
The advantage of the machines though is that the machines really lock you in.
Getting better each week, not just loading the bar.
When you're going to the gym, we're trying to get the body under some tension.
If you focus on form, you'll avoid a lot of injuries.
I started lifting when I was 12, and luckily for me, and maybe even more like 11, but luckily for me, I had two older brothers that were already doing it. And luckily for me, the first gyms I ever stepped foot in, they were doing a lot of powerlifting and a lot of bodybuilding type stuff. So I learned quickly and got to learn from people that were awesome. In today's world, you can learn some stuff from the internet, but it also is really confusing on kind of like where to start. My nephew, Lachlan, he just started lifting. He's about to be 12, I think. Where should someone start, and like how should they start? Like what kind of lifting do you think someone should do?
I think starting with like a bodybuilding type program and split is your best bet, especially starting out, because it gives you such a structure and it keeps things simple. So Monday, chest day, Tuesday, back day, stuff like that. Just focus on one body part, and you have just one thing to go in the gym and focus on, rather than, not really having a plan and going into the gym, and it could be intimidating. You're gonna see everything, and you might not really, I was intimidated when I got into the gym. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do and you don't really know what does what. So I think bodybuilding program, keep it simple and just run that and just progress on that and focus on, quality form. Don't focus too much on the weight, and I think that'll get you really far. And you'll start to learn kind of what works with your body, and you could then move on to something else. But that's a solid structure to start out with.
I think a cool thing about bodybuilding is that, for those that don't know, a lot of bodybuilding techniques and methods are kind of surrounded by this like 3 sets of 10 to 15 rep. So you do 3 sets. A set represents a grouping of like repetitions that you do. So let's say someone's doing a curl, just a standing curl with a barbell. They'll do a set of 10, they put the weight down, they rest how long? Like 60 seconds, 90 seconds?
Yeah, just about like within that, yeah.
Yeah, 60 to 90 seconds or so. Especially if you're a young kid and you're just starting out, you're gonna be like so bored. And we could teach you other techniques in a moment about things you can do when you're bored in between your sets, but you rest 60 to 90 seconds and then you do another set. And typically you'll do about 3 sets. Again, this is for the beginner. You're gonna do 3 sets of 10 reps, and you might progressively add weight. That's the way I started out. I'm not sure your own experience. Did you ever use light, medium, heavy? Did you ever do that technique before?
Yeah, I definitely would pyramid up sometimes, but I've also just kind of warmed up, and then if it's a 4x8, 4x10, I'll just stay there, and then I'll take that, and then next week I'll try to, just add 5 pounds, just basic progressive overload. But I do like to pyramid up. I think that's a solid way of doing things too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think beginner or even advanced people, a lot of times that's what they do. It's like the first movement that you do in the gym is giving yourself an opportunity to kind of take a diagnostic of the body. And if you're a young person, most likely nothing hurts.
Yeah.
So you could probably literally walk into the gym cold and grab something heavy, but it's not a great idea. It's not a place I'd like to see people start. So always start out lighter first, and if the lighter weights don't feel great, then you can kind of judge how much weight you're going to use. But again, in the case of a curl, you're doing your sets of 10, and maybe set number 1, you use a 10-pound barbell. Maybe the next set, then maybe you use 15. Maybe the next set after that, you use 20. And then you would move on to another exercise. How many exercises should somebody do per body part? Because there's probably a certain amount of exercises that someone would want to try to do, right?
Yeah, I would say anywhere from 5 to 6, especially when you're starting out, because you're gonna be doing straight sets like you said. You're not gonna be able to gauge, like, you're not gonna be really taking sets to failure. You're just gonna be sticking to the plan no matter what that is. So I think 5 to 6 is probably the sweet spot for beginners. That'll be enough volume to, even if you're not, taking the movements to failure like we do, you're still getting enough volume for growth.
And then if you're starting to push those exercises a little harder, maybe you can do a little less exercises, because you only want to make yourself so sore, and your workouts are only as good as your recovery. When you're trying something new, if you haven't really ever done it before at all, then I would just say, like, only do like 1 or 2 sets of it. And over time, you'll start to learn the movement. Like, we did some neck exercises today. Like, if you're new to like a neck movement or calves or something, there's no harm in making yourself like devastatingly sore. However, it's something that you can avoid by just kind of skimming up next to stuff, brushing up next to stuff. You mentioned 5 to 6 exercises, and this is a nice rule of thumb that people can apply to a lot of different things when it comes to strength training. But you can say that you could train 3 to 5 times per week. You can do 3 to 5 exercises per muscle group. It just works out really well that way. What about, so there's machines, like there's a lot of stuff. You walk into the gym and you're like, I see people on these machines and some of those people are jacked. I see people lifting free weights and some of those guys are jacked. How do you pick where you start on that?
Man, I would say you're definitely going to get a lot out of both, but as a beginner, I think it's super important to learn the technique of compound movements, like an RDL, even a bench press, like all of those things that are barbells, dumbbells, because it's also going to teach you how to like stabilize and stay tight within the movement. That, yeah. So I think that'll translate over to anything that you do. So I started with all of that, and then you can still do machines, like just pretty simple structure, like, hamstrings, RDLs, and then go do some hamstring curls, and you'll still prioritize that movement and learn, whether you go off and do a powerlifting program or whatever you do, like something more athletic, you're still gonna know how to like brace and properly put yourself in a safe position not to get hurt. So
I love what he's saying there, because movement is what we're trying to preach ultimately, right? And then Kenny and I have gotten into like bodybuilding and powerlifting and some of these other things, which sometimes can end up kind of restricting movement to a certain degree. But you want to really learn movement. You want to learn how to deadlift. Sometimes you go to teach someone how to deadlift and you recognize they don't know how to do a simple like bow, where they just push their hips back and do what would be called like a hip hinge. Or they have a really hard time just kind of like bending at the knees and getting into a good squat position. So these things that you can do when you're young, it's great to learn how to do them even better. A lot of times, like a 3-year-old kid can squat down to the floor perfectly. But when that 3-year-old kid becomes 11, if he has a lot of inactivity, when he goes to squat down, his hamstrings will be tight, his body's gonna be tight. So I agree with Kenny, you wanna really learn how to do a lot of these movements. The advantage of the machines, though, is that the machines really lock you in. And the machines even have little diagrams on the side, and it tells you kind of how to utilize the machine, where to set it and stuff like that. And so I think, if you're newer and you're younger, as long as you're not too short or your body doesn't fit some of the machines properly, should be really good on the machines. But I agree with what he's saying is you want your North Star, your goal your goal by the end of 6 months of training should be to have a pretty damn good idea of how to do bent over rows, some type of deadlift, some form of a squat, some form of some sort of bench press. Could be dumbbells, could be a barbell. You really want to learn a lot of these movements, and of course there is always like safety stuff on some of those exercises. You want to make sure that you have someone to spot you. But machines are awesome. I remember when I was a kid, like just kind of going from machine to machine, and I didn't even have like a body part in mind for the day. It was just like, oh, I'm gonna do like a leg extension. And the next thing I'm like, I want to do shoulder press.
Yep.
And I just want to let people know that that's okay to do that. That's totally fine to do that. It's just, I would be a little cautious towards trying to do that every day.
Yeah, no, I would definitely, I wouldn't stress too much over, like, you know, focusing too hard on one thing and stressing yourself out. But I will say from my experience starting out, it definitely helped to focus, like set in stone my form and how I'm, you know, moving, whether it's whatever exercise I choose. But if you do not, you know, focus and progress on form too, not just weight, if you start, you know, getting better each week, not just loading the bar, but, you know, better hip hinge, you know, you brace, use your core. Yeah. You won't build as many bad habits, because I, for like a year, was just ignoring all my technique, all my form, and I ended up building, you know, a not so optimal deadlift for my body, and it caused issues, lower back issues, knee issues with squats. So you could really avoid all that if you just focus on form as well, even though you're gonna wanna go heavy. But if you focus on form, you'll avoid a lot of injuries, I feel.
That's really well said also, and I think that kind of brings me to my next thing is it's not easy to do, but I would avoid getting too caught up in any sort of goal. You're 13, you're 15, you're 17, it's your first run of it. You go to lift for 3 weeks, you're not gonna notice huge changes in your physique. You're just not gonna, even if you gain fast, you're not gonna notice huge differences right away, because it's gonna take more than just lifting. It's gonna take a lot of dedication outside the gym. It's gonna take your nutrition, it's gonna take you getting used to your sleep. And a lot of these things, they take time to get used to, but we've seen too many people get obsessed with the weights that they lift.
Yeah.
And then their form and technique goes out the window. And you wanna really hone in on your form and technique over time. And that also is not gonna change overnight. You have to understand these things are gonna take you a long time. And sometimes when we say a long time, we're talking about some of these things could take a few years to learn, right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I think, plus it'll aid, in my opinion, it'll aid in more growth anyways. If you're doing an RDL wrong and you know you can improve on your form, but you just load the bar anyways, I feel like, you know, if you mess with your form a little bit and got that, you know, set in stone and then progressed, you'd get a lot more growth out of the muscle you're trying to hit. So
yeah, really learn, like take a lot of pride in that. Take a lot of pride in like learning how to do the exercises properly. Another huge component to this, and we're not going to dive too far into this because this could be a whole separate video, but it's massively important that you understand. I guess I'll give you two things here. Number one is we're going to need some sort of dietary rules. Like you need something to go off of because we're trying to gain some size. So I would say start to increase your protein. And maybe a good place to increase your protein would be just increasing it by somewhere between 30 to 50 grams per day. And that could just be so simple. It could come in the form of a protein shake. You could also just look up some stuff on the internet that has 30 to 50 grams of protein, but that's really simple. It's like a chicken breast. Something that's like the size of your palm would probably represent 20 to 30 grams of protein, or something that's the size of your fist would probably represent that as well. Any sort of dairy is going to have protein in it. Cottage cheese, yogurt, milk, those types of things are going to have, and then obviously any type of meat. So if you haven't practiced this or haven't messed with this at all, if you just all of a sudden start eating 200 grams of protein tomorrow, your stomach is going to really be pissed off if you haven't been anywhere near that marker before. So just increase it slowly over time. The other thing I want to note is that for some of the kids that are watching this, some of the people that are younger, it's not dangerous to work out. It's not dangerous by any means to lift weights. You can start at 6, you can start at 7, you could start at 9. The age doesn't really matter. The only thing I would say is, like, it probably doesn't make a ton of sense for someone that's 9 to really do that much lifting, because I'd rather see, most of those kids aren't into that at that age. Most kids aren't into it until they're a little older. And it's it can be boring. It can be boring to do like set after set. My experience, when I've had kids in here, I have my own kids and stuff too, but when I've tried to work with them, they get really distracted really easy, and they'd rather throw the med ball around and do other activities. So lifting isn't necessarily not safe for kids. And also increasing your protein. Like your mom, you might say, hey mom, I want you to get some protein powder. They might be worried or concerned that that's going to cause some sort of damage, but the lifting and the protein, both of them are healthy for anyone to do.
Yeah, that was good. Talking about making sure you get enough protein in, I think that's a solid structure. Like, I remember when I first started, like 12, 13, it was just, I was like, all right, every time I eat, I'm just gonna make sure there's some type of protein in this meal. Like, I'm not just gonna have carbs and fats. I'm gonna make sure there's protein. I'm also not going to, a lot of the issues I ran into was trying to get it all in one sitting, which you could do. Probably when you're starting out, you could mess around with different ways, like fasting, eating one meal a day, maybe, but I found what works best for me is not like, you know,
splitting it up.
Yeah, like kind of just like hints, like smaller portions that you can digest and handle for your body, not trying to, you know, oh, I'm down, I need 300 grams of protein, I'm gonna eat it all in one sitting. That just caused, you know, that caused more issues. So I would just say, take it slow, just like the training, like, you know, frequent little meals, make sure you have protein, and that'll get you a lot of results for like the first couple years of training. So
I think we nailed just about everything there. Yeah, just make sure that your form is good, like really learn the exercises. Don't forget about the power of the internet. You're watching a video on the internet right now, and there's a lot of different people you could look up to try to see the execution of these movements. There's so many places to go to see like exercise descriptions. My own YouTube channel, for many, many years, we've had people show people how to deadlift, how to squat. We'll put a link to that here so you guys can check some of those things out. But there's other people who've been doing that kind of thing for years and years and years, breaking down every exercise between, you know, from a regular crunch to a sit-up to a pull-up, every movement. So you have access to see all those different things, and then you can go to the gym and just give them a shot yourself. The last place I'll finish here is, so when you're going to the gym, one of the things that you're actually trying to do, I don't want to make this too complicated, but when you're going to the gym, we're trying to get the body under some tension, mechanical tension. We're looking for some resistance, and that resistance helps break down muscle tissue. And so we need to repair the muscle tissue. In my opinion, gaining some muscle mass and having a good physique is as simple as breaking down protein and eating protein. So you'll hear bodybuilders and lifters and stuff talk so much, and bros around the world talk so much about protein. That's the reason why we never shut up about protein, because we break the protein down, consume the protein, go back and forth between those two things, and over time, you'll gain some muscle mass. You'll also notice that the first place that you're going to have encouragement is probably not through your body or not through a compliment you might get from somebody else, but it's going to be through your strength. You're going to go in the gym for a handful of days, for a handful of months maybe. You start to build a little bit of consistency, and you got to be consistent if you want this to work. We need a minimum 2-3 days a week for this to work the right way. But about 3 months down the road, after you've been lifting for a little bit, you're going to be like, oh, shit, I hit a nice bench PR, and I wasn't squirming all over the bench going crazy. Oh man, I can handle a little bit more on like the seated row. And that shit will give you so much confidence. The next thing that's right around the corner from that is you getting a compliment from somebody going, hey, are you doing something different?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it might sound silly, but that is I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now, because the first couple times you get that, you're not used to that. Especially like I was kind of a fatter kid for a while. I was pretty heavy. And the first couple times you get a compliment, you're like, it sends you through the roof. Now, this is a different topic for a different day. That probably shouldn't happen. You don't want people's compliments to push you too far, whether it's a bad comment or whether it's a good comment. You don't want it to push you too far one way or the other. But it does make you feel really good and gives you fucking tons of motivation. You probably got a lot of motivation like that when you were young, right?
Yeah, definitely. Even just, I mean, even aside from that, just going into the gym for the first time and like, you know, doing okay, like I'm gonna hit arms and getting a pump, that gave me all the confidence.
Your arms get a little bigger?
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, they just grew like an inch, and now I feel bigger, I feel confident, I can walk around with my chest out. Like that alone did a lot mentally for me, and just getting comfortable in the gym and seeing, like, you know, it's not actual progress yet, but it's, you can see it for the time being, and it definitely helps. Yeah.
If we go too far with the anabolic activities, unfortunately, they become catabolic. So take us on out of here.
All right, guys, that's enough. Yeah, that's enough anabolic activities for today. Let us know what you think in the comments, and yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. See ya.